Hi, everybody, and welcome back to our holiday event. We are on day 5 of our holiday series, 12 days of holiday self-care. And today we're diving into a refreshing perspective, and that's nourishment without rules. So for many of us, holiday eating comes with maybe an emotional weight where we might look at foods and label them as good or bad, maybe have a sense of guilt around indulgence, or pressure to eat in a certain way. But what if we set that all aside and focused on nourishment that truly supports us, mind, body, and soul? So today we're going to explore a non-diet approach to holiday eating that's flexible, or aims to be flexible, compassionate, and again, aims to be freeing. You'll learn how to consider maybe looking at food as neutral, prioritize nourishment for joy, and find out what works best for you without judgment or restriction. So hopefully we can maybe reimagine holiday eating a little bit different this year. So I have Kathleen Herder with us today. Hi, Kathleen.
Hi, Susan.
We're so excited to have you here. Kathleen is our dietitian on our team, and she specializes in working with relationship with food and improving relationship with food, especially if there is a component of chronic illness that someone may be struggling with. So I'm excited to have this conversation today about nourishment without rules, because so many times I'll hear problematic food rules in conversations, especially around the holiday season. And I think just getting clear on them right now would be a great place to start. So when we think about food and we hear people talk about food as good or bad, how do you maybe address that or talk about that with clients or people just in your world?
Yeah, and I think that good foods and bad foods is such a common thing. I'll try to talk about the idea of making them morally neutral. Like, we're not saying that an apple has the exact same nutrition as a cookie, but we're saying that, like, can we make them feel morally neutral where you don't feel like you've been bad if you've had a cookie? Because different foods give us different things, and that's okay. Like, the apple might give us more fiber, and the cookie might give us more enjoyment. And I think our society often makes the idea of joy around food this bad thing. And the reality is that when we take away joy and connection around food, I think we're doing ourselves a really big disservice.
I hate the term like sinfully delicious. Mm-hmm. Like, sinful for having chocolate? I don't think that's a sin. The demonization of foods, making them seem as bad. But I think the flip side to it is there's also the conversation around maybe putting a halo around healthy foods. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, like, if you are, craving apple pie and it's like, well, the healthier option is apples. It's not equivalent.
Mm-hmm. It's not the same thing. And you're not going to feel satisfied, right? Because we know that when we don't feel satisfied, we're going to end up seeking out that satisfaction in other ways. And it might be through a bunch of foods that you don't actually enjoy. Yeah. So letting yourself have the apple pie, especially because there's probably connection. Like, maybe you made it with your grandma or something, right? Like, there's always that piece that we just try to erase. And I think that's really sad.
I think too, if we allow ourselves to have it and still feel like it's sinful, are we really enjoying it too? Like,
letting yourself be in the moment and actually be okay with enjoying it. And it's easier said than done. Like, I wish it was like, you listen to this and all of a sudden it's going to feel fine. But often it's more of a journey with a lot of reflection and self-talk.
Yeah. So how can someone practice more neutrality when it comes to, things that are maybe seen as sinful or bad, and we want to just like neutralize them?
I would often just think about, like, an example I'll often give is people feel really guilty around pizza. They feel like pizza is bad. And I'll kind of say like, okay, well, what's in the pizza? We've got starch, we've got cheese, we've got tomato sauce as a base. And kind of just the idea of saying, well, it's giving us carbs, which are fueling our body. It's giving us protein and fat that we need in a meal. And it's giving us a little bit of veggies. Like, can we just break down and say like, it's giving our body energy, and it's also maybe giving us joy, and thinking about things that way, because this idea of like empty calories is one of my biggest pet peeves, because our body needs energy, and just kind of like shifting it to maybe this food is going to give me more energy for a longer period of time, or like kind of shifting that lens a little bit to try to make it feel a little bit more neutral.
Calories can't be empty.
Mm-hmm.
That's just like the facts. Calories.
Maybe alcohol. But
okay.
Yeah.
There's not much there. But yeah, everything gives us nourishment, and I can see how that's definitely a pet peeve. And yes, I don't know if it's just recently, but pizza's been in the demonized lists lately, and we really want to take a look at actually breaking it down and understanding that it's neutral. It can be neutral. When we think about attuned eating, how do we kind of maybe use attuned eating to help us navigate eating and not maybe have rules around eating?
Yeah, I think that idea of attuned eating, so like checking in with yourself, because sometimes we use the phrase normal eating and we realize that normal is kind of disordered, so therefore are attuned. I think that it can look at the idea of the fact that, like, again, different foods can give us different things. And so some foods might give us more, they might be more nutrient dense. Maybe they give us more like, some carbs with lots of fiber, or maybe they give us protein, or they give us fats or vitamins or minerals. And maybe some foods give us more, I don't know, enjoyment or connection. And the fact that we can kind of use a balance, like having both, to give us what we need. And tuning into how different foods make us feel, if that feels available to you. And also what you really want. Like, what do you really want? I don't know. I'm trying to think of holiday meals. Yeah. Do you really want the apple? Because sometimes maybe you do want the like crunchiness of an apple, and that's really what you want. Fantastic. But maybe you want that soothing, like enjoyable apple pie, and that's okay too. And making the apples into apple pie doesn't mean you get rid of all the nutrients in an apple either.
Exactly. It's just a different way of enjoying apples.
Exactly.
Yeah, when I think about attuned eating, maybe in a social situation too, I remember one holiday event. We're supposed to be eating at like 1:00, and a handful of people were late, and 1:00 turned into 2:00, turned into 3:00, and like I was starting to feel ill, and I think everybody else was, and so I just started nibbling and snacking and nourishing myself because I didn't like how I felt, and it kind of bucked the system because people were like, "Oh, you should be waiting." I'm like, "Yeah, but I plan to be eating at 1, and so I haven't really eaten, for a while, and now I'm getting to that point where I don't feel good." And just, giving yourself permission too, that the social rule was wait until everybody is there. And I was like, no, I don't want to feel sick. I don't want that headache that I'm going to have from going too long between eating. And, I'm still going to socialize when everybody gets here. And when we all sit down, I'll still sit and partake. But right now my body is saying, feed me. And I'm going to honor that. So I kind of see that as maybe bucking again a rule that we may have when it comes to eating. And with holiday time, our schedules are going to be all over the place. and we may not be able to follow a normal pattern of eating that we usually have outside of holiday time. But when we're attuned and listen to our body, we have to honor what it's asking for and what it's telling you. And just to even normalize that it's okay to maybe do that if you can get around that social aspect.
And it's almost a good reminder too to not, like, I hear people often talk about like saving up their food throughout the day. And such a good reminder that like a part of attuned eating is the fact that your body needs fuel throughout the day. And if we just wait all day, it's like the hungrier we get, the more likely we are to eat past the point of comfortable fullness. So also thinking about giving your body food regularly during the day instead of saving up for the meal.
Yeah, that ties into what we're going to talk about is like the idea of being flexible with your meal times over the holiday season. And if we're used to maybe a more patterned or structured eating, that it's okay to be flexible. I hear this a lot of the times in January when people come back and they're like, oh yeah, I didn't have my 3 meals a day. It was more like we slept in till 10:30 and had a late lunch and a late dinner. I got to get back on track. And I'm like, why? Like that was holiday eating, holiday time. And like you were nourishing yourself adequately, but you slept in. So even just recognizing that there'll probably be some times where your eating might be different over the holiday season. That's okay. Don't feel like, again, it's something that you have to fix or get back on track. If it's serving you in that time and you're still nourishing yourself, those expectations can be shifted a little bit. So I think the other area when we hear about rules of eating and having to kind of follow those, I'd like to maybe address this idea of having to be mindful when it comes to our eating, and that maybe distracted eating or, not being mindful is kind of unhealthy or bad. What would you have to say about that?
I think it's so fascinating how we've decided that like quote unquote healthy mindful eating is this idea of like sitting by yourself in silence at a table where you focus on every single bite. Like A, that sounds awful to me. And B, like part of food is often that, especially around the holidays, connection. And that's historically how humans have usually eaten. And so this idea that like, if you're not paying attention to every single bite, you're doing it wrong. To me, I would say like, if you can check in with yourself and maybe if there's something you only get once a year, like, can you enjoy the smell and taste of a bite of it? Then to me, that's being mindful or not letting yourself get to the point where you are so hungry that you're getting a headache or in my case, hangry. Can you think about eating something? So I think it's been skewed, the idea of mindfulness. It has become this rule instead of this idea of like, maybe we can be in the moment, and that might be enjoying our connection with other people or enjoying the ambiance. And that doesn't have to mean that we can never be distracted. It might mean enjoying watching your holiday movie while you're eating your cookie. And I think that can be, that's fine. I am a dietitian and I eat in front of the TV all the time.
Absolutely. I think that's, it can be part of the holiday experience to kind of have a few things going on when we're eating. What about, so that's kind of we're talking about how holiday eating and all of this can be very joyful for a lot of people. What about individuals that might not find, I guess, the ability to eat and nourish themselves in amongst the hustle and bustle of gatherings and lots of, social situations? What would you kind of say for people that are finding it difficult that way?
I think that we have to also normalize the fact that like it can be overstimulating for some people. and it can feel like too much. And in those cases, it's maybe like, how can we figure out a way to nourish you that doesn't feel overwhelming? So maybe that means that you eat something that you feel comfortable with before you go to a holiday gathering. Or maybe it means that you bring something for yourself, and maybe you, if you feel comfortable, step away and go eat it in the other room. Like, I think we have to be realizing that different people just process things differently, and normalizing that it's okay to not sit down at the big overwhelming table. Maybe that doesn't feel okay for you. And so I think lots of times it's, do we eat first? Do we eat after? If the like nutritional drinks are something you're okay with, do you have that on the way? I think it's realizing that it doesn't need to look a specific way.
Yeah. And I think too, hopefully maybe people who are on this call that might know somebody that really gets overstimulated with, I guess, a lot of people or events like this, that if they do kind of step aside, like that's okay too. Like a lot of well-meaning people be like, oh, come on, join us, and you got to be part of us. Like, don't be a party pooper. And like, if someone said like, hey, no, I'm good, like, we can also work hard at maybe respecting that as well. I have one adult client who I remember was telling me that their way of kind of dealing with it is sitting at the kids' table, because they felt like there was no expectations and can just kind of eat freely amongst, I guess, the kiddos, and that it seemed normal because I was like, oh, you're just like watching over the kids. But it was kind of a form of a escape to be able to navigate. So yeah, I think just recognizing that eating might not always be joyful for everybody, and that, you know, how we nourish ourselves may differ. And if there are people that maybe are coming to events that, you know, maybe ask them, what could I do to make things more comfortable for you? Maybe another kind of tip that we can look at doing. So again, breaking that rule that, you know, we see the pictures of Christmas with the long table and everybody sitting there and looking nice. And I mean, my household is, then there's the one that bounces. my 11-year-old, she just bounces. She even says like, I've got ants in my pants. And so if like, I just kind of lowered my expectations, like, we're not, like, she might kind of eat before or nibble or whatever, but it's almost disruptive and doesn't want to be there. So she can get her ants in the pants elsewhere.
Absolutely. It doesn't need to look like a Hallmark card.
Yeah. Because that, I think, puts a lot of pressure on parents to make things perfect. So any other tips that you can think of, Kathleen, when it comes to, you know, nourishing your body without rules and expectations, and just kind of allowing yourself to adequately nourish yourself in a way that feels good?
I think like shifting the lens from this idea that we have, like, nutrition has become a weird code for trying to eat the least amount of food possible and still functioning. Can we shift that lens to like giving your body what it needs, right? Like, can we eat throughout the day and not save up? And can we think about the fact that it's okay to enjoy food? And also just thinking about the fact, again, that looks different for different people. And maybe we shouldn't comment on other people's food and eating, just like we wouldn't want to comment on ours. I know we're going to talk more about that later, but just to throw that in for everyone, because I think it bears repeating. Yeah.
If there's one thing that I've been talking about lately, I'm sure you have been too with clients, is really helping the people that we work with how to dodge those conversations or navigate them. So if you're listening here and you're somebody who often comments on eating, or you like catch yourself wanting to make a comment, like it's hard. I think society makes it very normal to do so, but let's just make a pact this year that we're not going to comment on other people's eating and what they're eating, and just, you do you, they do them. Which again is breaking a societal rule when it comes to nourishment. So Okay, well, we're going to wrap up here, and just want to remind you that nourishment is more than just nutrients. It's connection, joy, and self-compassion. We're going to maybe have some regrets in our eating, which is okay. We're going to do things a little bit differently over this holiday season, and don't feel that you're letting things slide or anything like that. Just enjoy what you can in those moments, because really it's just this time of year. Okay, so thank you, Kathleen, for being on this call, and we'll see you later.
Bye.